We are going to do, over the course of tonight and tomorrow, we will be doing 4 total panels. Each panel will go through a different era of parenting. So we'll start right now with newborn and infant. Then we'll go into elementary, preteen and teen, and then college and young adult. So we'll cover all 4 of those. But right now we start at the beginning. And if you've spent any time here at our church, you know that almost every Sunday we announce that there's been a new baby born. We're very good at that. Okay, so here's our lovely panel. And if we could just do like a 10-second autobiography for each of you, for those of us who don't know who you are. I'll start down there on the end with Miss Colleen.
I'm Colleen Gregg, and we came from Indiana, and my husband was in ministry up there. Is that great?
Great. How many kids do you have?
2 kids, Matt and Kristen, and she said, just remember, you have really good kids, Mom.
Yes.
That was supposed to be my
That's true.
big punch.
That is why you all have been picked for this panel, because you all have walked through every season of parenting and you have very healthy fruit to show for it. So we want to learn from you. Next.
Mark Craig, is this on? No, it's on. Mark Craig, and it's a blessing to be here at CCC. It really is. Thank God for this church and that you guys are here this weekend. You could be doing 100 other things, and what a blessing to see out growing together like this. And and Kirsten said every time we mention Lukla, our granddaughter, we owe them $10.
Oh, that's a lot.
Wow.
That's a lot. I only got $1 whenever my name was mentioned in a sermon.
Right.
I was a bad negotiator.
My name is Gregg Heinsch. I grew up in the farming country of southern Minnesota. Grew up on a lake. Oldest of 6 kids, 4 sisters, and 1 other brother. Many of you know my other brother, or my one brother. And what else did I say? I went to Bethel College and Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota. And,
How many kids do you have?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. 3 kids, 9 grandkids, and the 10th one on the way. Oh! Taylor and Carly, but don't tell anybody. It's not supposed to get out yet. No, go ahead. You can.
I'm
Said
Heidi.
everything.
I'm Heidi.
Who are you?
Heidi Heinsch. We've been married for 43 years, and yes, I really did birth this big boy right here. One person asked me at the end of the service a couple years ago, is he really your biological son? Yes, he is. Yes, we have 3 children and almost 10 grandchildren, and it's just very much a blessing to see your children parent their children.
What did you do for a career?
Well, I taught school, and when Gregg was in seminary, and then I stayed home for 13 years to raise the kids. And then when they were in elementary school, then I went back to teaching. And down here for almost 20 years now, I've been a principal of the Geneva School. It's a Christian classical school up in Castleberry. But I'm retiring as of December.
So you've dealt with a lot of young kids.
Yes, every day in my office, and I loved it.
I'm going to ask each of you questions directed at you, and then others can chime in if you want. We don't have to feel like everyone has to answer every question. And then I have some free-for-all questions at the end. But I'll start first with Colleen on the end. Let's say I'm a brand new parent. What sorts of life adjustments should I expect and should we welcome as parents?
There definitely will be adjustments. I always say our first child was really easy, so I felt like the first 6 to 8 months, they just sat in a little rockaroo and we'd go play games till midnight, or we were in youth ministry and we'd pop them in the nursery. I feel like the first few months were actually not a whole lot of adjustments for us. I know some of you guys had twins. Some of you guys probably have colicky kids, so that's not always probably true for everyone. But I feel like our adjustments didn't start happening till he got a little bit older. But then there was definitely changes that came. You weren't quite as free anymore to do those things that we had been doing as far as staying out late and things like that. I feel like you do have to consider others, which would be your child and your spouse, and those considerations maybe are more so once the kids are around than even it was before you had kids. I don't think you need to give up friendships and need to give up serving. I am so thrilled. Even this week, I saw one of the moms in the office. Her little toddler was sleeping, and she was serving, getting things ready for established households. And then I talked to another dad a week or so ago who actually was cutting down on ministries because it was a little too much for their family. But just neat to see they're still serving and wanting to be a part of things. I think that's amazing to show your kids how you can serve too. It's not just all about them, all about their exact nap time, all about just doing everything for them. So I'm excited to see the parents here even serving and in that way too. But yeah, things do change, and you got to be ready to adjust to your kids' schedule some too. It's just not all take them wherever and go. But glad to see that. And friendships too, you know, maybe more having kids over or having families over to your house, and including those kids in your time of fellowship with other Christians and other outings and things like that. Anything else that... one example, it was interesting when our kids were little. Mark was in seminary, and one thing that I couldn't quite give up, but he said, no, we're going to give us up, was actually an evening church service. Used to be, you know, pretty much you always went to church services, morning, evening, Wednesday nights. And with all of his studies and with all of, you know, working full-time along with that, that was one time he's like, no, you know, we're going to have to give up those evening church services to be as a family, to be home together, and just to make time as working parents, which I'm sure at least one in every household is. Yeah, it's important to have that time with your kids on weekends and at home in the evenings and stuff too. So, yeah.
So there's going to be big adjustments, but it doesn't mean that our entire life revolves around the kid and their schedule. We're going to take them,
Right.
They're along for the ride as well. We don't just go in shutdown mode, but also means that there needs to be some kind of, like you're saying, structure as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice. Gregg, Dad.
Yes, Luke, I am your father.
When we're I've never heard that before. And our sister, who you don't often see because she married my college roommate and lives in Turkey, her name is Leah, and we were born at the same time when Star Wars was coming out. And so it was Luke, and then it was Leah, and then everyone thought Taylor was going to be like Han or Chewie or something, but they broke the pattern and went with Taylor. I want my kids to know the Bible. How can we teach our kids at this stage, and what sorts of things should they be learning?
Babies and toddlers? Well, you start with letting the Word of God dwell in you richly, and then it will come out. As your children, no matter what, even at a very, very young age, before they can even talk, don't think that they can't learn things. And they'll learn by seeing mom and dad with their Bibles open, reading it. And then as they're able to understand, tell them stories. Tell them the stories from the Bible. When you tell them those stories, though, always make sure that God is the hero. Because many times we turn these stories into like little self-help lessons. Like David was a really brave boy, you go be a brave boy. No, that's not what that story's about. That's about God. And what you want to do is keep, even from those earliest years, cultivating within your young children this idea that God is really great, and the storyline of the Bible come to life for them. You can do it with songs. You can do it with actions. The rains came down and the floods came up. Yeah. And, you can come up with all kinds of ways to do it. In our home growing up, we used to have a little box of promises, and we would read them at the mealtime. But I don't know if the little kids will pick that up. But like I even told that story about the 2-year-old. They'll pick this kind of stuff up. But they should see you reading your Bible. And one of the most vivid memories that I have was my bedroom most of the years was at the end of the hallway, and my mom and dad's bedroom was the next one, next door to it. There were times when I would be leaving my bedroom, and my mom's door would be ajar, and she'd be on her knees with her bed open. The Bible open, the door was open by me. Did I say bed? Yeah. Bible was open on the bed, and she would be crying and pleading to God. And wow, that really impresses you. Even a little child gets the idea that something very real is happening here. So I think you can pass that on to your kids. We had little signs and framed things up with Bible verses on them. I have pictures of me from when I was under 2 years old with the Bible open in my lap. I think they always wanted me to be a preacher. You don't have to do that, but just make the Bible visible and a part of everyday life. Tell them the stories, make God the hero, and share them like you believe it.
So Mark, why is it important at this early stage to develop habits and rhythms with our children and our family?
As Pastor Gregg was talking beforehand, I was thinking during that, my kids grew me, I think, as much or more than I grew them parenting-wise. And that kind of a rhythm, I think you've got to have right out of the gate. Often parents will wait. It's like, well, down the road, I'll get to that spiritual development. I'll get to that down the road. And often, I think by that kind of thinking, they'll set patterns that are harmful patterns. Instead of right out of the gate, the gospel is for right now, and looking for ways, as we just talked about, in an infant's life, to speak the gospel to them, to talk about God, to pray for them, to pray with them. That's so important to set those patterns and disciplines and rhythms up front, because if you don't, a negative pattern will take hold. So you've got to set that gospel pattern right out of the gate. Otherwise, like even for parenting, if I control them to discipline them, that controlling pattern will continue. If diverting them from things, not that it's ever wrong to divert your child from, show them something else to divert them from this, but if that is the only pattern of discipline, that'll all of a sudden you'll find them in elementary, late elementary, teenager, and that's your pattern of parenting. Instead of out of the gate, I'm talking to them about God. They may not understand, they don't understand everything, but you're setting a pattern in your own heart and mind for the way you talk with them. So it's so important, I think, to set that kind of rhythm and that pattern in their life right out of the gate for your own benefit as well as theirs.
Heidi, Mom, how should we think about discipline at this stage? And what should we know about our children's development in these early years?
Well, sorry, I have a lot to say, if that's okay.
I will allow it.
Having a newborn is, as some of you, I hear the little cries, is both exhilarating and exhausting all at the same time, but it has such opportunity. I hold back tears every time I see baby dedications up here because it's such a wonderful role that you're playing and leading your little ones to Jesus, all while recognizing that they don't belong to us, but they do truly belong to God, and that they are God's greatest gift to you and your spouse. And that Paul Tripp says that nothing is more important in life than to be God's tool to form a human soul. When you become a parent, you become an ambassador, God's representative called to make his grace visible to them. Wow. And we're not doing it alone. He just doesn't give us that directive, but he said he's going to be with us and for us and help us and give us the grace and the wisdom if we ask him. So that in itself just makes you feel like you should just go, if you have a brand new baby with you even at the moment. I really wish that I would have had this book that you are given in your bags back when I was a parent. I recommend that book to every parent that I interview at Geneva, the school that I'm at, that they want to come to the school. And because I feel like it's his best book because it's more gospel-centered than some of his previous ones. And every time I read it, I feel like so encouraged. So one of the things that I think would be really helpful to you as parents, no matter what stage you're at, is to take that book and spend some time together as a couple and pray together and read that together chapter by chapter and really discuss it so that you have some sort of a plan that you have with your parenting. Otherwise, it might be kind of haphazard. The one thing that I think is the most important thing is that you and your spouse are on the same page with how you want to discipline your children and how you want to raise them. And so I encourage you to do that right out of the blocks. These early years set the tone and the foundation for the rest of your years of parenting, when you have a baby and when you have a toddler. So it's a lot like building a house, because they're brand new, they're pliable, like the clay, like the potter is shaping the clay. So these are the foundational years. I love the early childhood and baby years because it's such an opportunity for us as parents. And so we think of it like building a house. You need the slab, the foundation, and then what do you also have to have? You have to have the cornerstone. The cornerstone is always talked about in the Bible too, and the cornerstone is Christ. So like I said before, we're not doing it by ourselves. It's important, like I said, to be both on the same page. And hold on a second. Besides being intentional and consistent in your parenting, like Mark was saying, developing the rhythms and the habits that you want to have in your families. I know our kids are even doing some different things that we haven't done, but rhythm is really an important thing. Like, if you think about it, God is a God of order, not chaos. Even our heartbeat is a rhythm. The thump, the thump, the thump. All the music that we have, sing to is a rhythm. So you want to have some rhythms and traditions in your family that will develop who you are as a family. And starting those out in the early years is really important. Whether it's when you get up in the morning, you do a specific thing, or you develop routines and schedules within your family, however you want to do that. But talk together with your spouse and work that out as well. There's a lot of joy in parenting that outweighs our weariness, because parenting is humble faithfulness and being willing to participate in God's great work of change for the sake of your children. Another thing I feel like is important is take the long view of parenting. When you have small children, you think, wow, this is going to be a lot of work, which it is. It's 24/7. But take the long view, because they are going to need your reminders more often than not. Because they're children, they are still learning. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. Let's see. I already said.
How do we discipline at this? Do we discipline at this age?
Yeah, that's
what does that look like?
I'm betting there, right there.
Oh, good.
Don't worry.
Great,
don't worry.
Mom, great.
Don't worry. That's right here, Luke. You will be disciplining at this age, and it starts right at day one. You are meeting the needs of your child cognitively, emotionally, socially. You're nurturing them. Even from day one, your child is sensing you and knows you. Even in utero, your child knows your voice. Your child knows your tenderness and your gentleness and the rhythms of how you're speaking to your child. So developing even routines and schedules with your baby, obviously when they're brand new, you have to kind of go by what they want because of their feeding schedule and everything, but once you can start setting patterns for them, that's really developing some type of discipline and training in your child right from starting from day one. Setting your authority is key right at the beginning too. Your authority, not in a, not in a this kind of a way, but just in a loving and gentle way of how you're parenting your child. Even things like setting up expectations for them. When your child is little, baby-proof your house and just leave only a few things out because we want them to be successful. We don't want them to fail. So if you just leave all of your nice grandma's things all over the house, they're gonna break them because they're curious. So baby-proof your house when they're younger, and maybe leave a couple things out, like you have a vase or a plant in the corner, and then teach them. You take them over by the hand, you say, no, no. And then if they do touch it, then you tell them again, no. And as they get older, by the time they're like toddlers, if they're defying you and they're gonna look at you like this, we've had one of our grandchildren do that when their parents said, don't touch that, and they turned around and smiled and touched it. That's because, what are they? They come into this world as a sinner. They don't need to be taught those things. They already are sinners, so it's our job to shepherd them. So the parent picks them up, takes them in the other room, says, Daddy said no, or Mommy said no. And we spanked our kids, starting probably around the age of maybe around 2 years old, when they were to be able to understand no and what obeying means. They do need to be taught what obedience is. We can't just say, you need to obey Mommy and Daddy. What does that mean? You show them what that means, and you keep showing them what that means. Let's see, what other things I have. And let's see, take their hand, let's see. Oh, preschoolers, when they get to the age of preschool, they can learn how to go through a process of reconciliation. So when your child is like 3 or 4 years old and they're talking well, they can understand that process if you teach them to say, if they did something wrong to the sibling or whatever, you just say, look at your sibling and you look at your brother or sister and apologize for what you did. You look them in the eye and you say, I'm sorry I did that, please forgive me. And then you talk to them about how wonderful that was and hug them and say they're forgiven. But you start that off when they're very young. We do that at school all the time. When they come into my office, I do the same type of thing. So by the time they're in 2nd, 3rd grade, they're doing that out on the playground all on their own because they've learned that process.
So they're getting like practice reps, even if they don't fully understand
Yes.
what they're doing exactly.
Absolutely. And the kids need boundaries. Like sometimes we think, oh, we're being so strict with them. No, they need boundaries. They desire boundaries, and they feel safe when you have routine and when you have boundaries for them. Anything you want to say to that?
No?
We got just a couple minutes left on this panel. If we had a lot of young families here with newborns and infants and toddler age, and you think back to when you were at that stage in life, like what encouragement would you give them, and what do you wish perhaps you would have known at that time? I'll just throw that out there, and we have a couple minutes left on this.
I want to know out of the gate, what is my goal as a parent? And it's, again, establishing in their thinking, their heart, a big God, a gracious God, and to let that grow the older they get developmentally. As they start out at 0, brand new infant, they're totally dependent on everything for you to do, think, say for them for all your nurturing. But you want that more and more to be in their hands. So Ephesians 6:4 as a parent, you're bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And so by the time they leave your home, they're ready for life, a godly life, a God-centered life. So having that in your mind as a parent, again, out of the gate, not just waiting down the road to get that going, but talking to your child about God in very simple ways as you're waking up, as you're walking by the way, as you're going to bed. Don't let God just be a bedtime thing, just a bedtime story. You ought to talk about him all day long, pray in developmental ways with them about the simplest things, is Luca, we're taking her for walks and looking at the trees. Did God make the trees? God did make the trees. Aren't those amazing? And stop and look at the leaves. You can do that with an infant, and they're going to see him and see how great and big he is. So have that in your mind, what you're trying to do as a parent, to bring them up, prepare them to live a godly life, and you can do that from day one.
Yeah, and when you're doing that, just say, who made those trees? God did. Who made those flowers? God did. So that's repetition again with them so that they keep saying that. Another thing that I thought of too is that don't forget your spouse when you have a baby. I kind of did that. So it's a little full confession here. Yes, I did. Because I was so loving being a mom and into being a mom and wanting to pour my whole being into nurturing and loving my children, that I thought, I didn't consciously really do it, but subconsciously, oh, he's good, he's an adult, he doesn't need me as much anymore. Yeah, you still need each other. You need each other continue to pour into each other as well. So don't neglect time with your spouse either, like I did.
Can I add a 20-second answer to this question, even though you did not raise kids with this dimension to what we're wrestling with today in raising children with screen time? What would you do with screen time if you were to raise kids right now at this age? Screen time. None at all? A little bit? Let them have it whenever they want? What would you do with that?
Babies and toddlers? No.
Why not?
No. Well, from experience, what I see in the schools, I can tell when kids have been on the screen a lot. They can't sit still, they can't attend. It rewires your brain. Children they don't need it at this age at all. They should be out exploring, crawling around, getting dirty, digging in the mud, going on, like he said, going on nature walks, all of that, reading books to them, all of that. They don't need to have screen time at this age of their life.
I would say that was the one mistake we made too. Videos just came into
Like
existence.
VHS tapes?
VHS tapes.
Oh, look
You guys know what videos
just
are?
came into existence. When
Be
our
kind,
kids
please
were
rewind.
little,
Yeah.
And I thought it was amazing. Grandma bought our son Barney's and Sesame Streets, and he knew how to Gerbert, but he knew how to read and he knew how to do his number. And but just the rote memory and just, I don't know, that was something I would have done very different, and just
this
having to
sta-
memorize these videos.
At this
it's like,
stage?
yeah.
Yeah, at this stage. All right. Great. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back with panel and the elementary years. Dun, dun, dun.